For 3 decades, the African National Congress, or ANC, stood as the undisputed titan of South African politics. Their journey from a liberation movement fighting against the oppressive apartheid regime to the ruling party was nothing short of historic. The ANC dominated South African politics, shaping the nation's trajectory and influencing every facet of society. Their policies, their leaders, and their very identity were intertwined with the fabric of the new South Africa. Governing alone as the party that liberated the nation from apartheid, they enjoyed an unparalleled mandate and a deep reservoir of public trust. Nelson Mandela's legacy loomed large, casting a long shadow over the political landscape. That era ended abruptly, marking a seismic shift in South African politics. The long-held dominance of the ANC was about to be challenged in ways few could have predicted. In the 2024 general election, the political landscape underwent a dramatic transformation, signaling a new chapter in the nation's democratic journey. The ANC failed to secure a majority for the first time since 1994, a watershed moment that reverberated across the country and beyond. The aura of invincibility that had surrounded the party for so long had finally been shattered. Widespread frustration over the economy had reached a boiling point. Years of slow growth and missed opportunities had taken their toll on the electorate. Unemployment, particularly among the youth, remained stubbornly high, fueling discontent and resentment. And the persistent shadow of corruption further eroded public trust in the ruling party. This forced the ANC to seek partners to stay in power, a humbling experience for a party accustomed to ruling alone. The political calculus had fundamentally changed. In a twist that few could have predicted, the ANC turned to its longtime rival, a move that stunned the nation and reshaped the political landscape. The Democratic Alliance, or DA, a party that had defined itself in opposition to the ANC, now found itself in the unlikely position of potential partner. A party defined by its opposition to ANC policies, the DA represented a fundamentally different vision for South Africa's future. Despite vast ideological differences, the ANC and DA were now faced with a stark reality: cooperation or political gridlock. Electoral math left few alternatives, forcing both parties to confront the possibility of an unprecedented alliance. After tense negotiations filled with uncertainty and high stakes, a potential path forward began to emerge. The ANC and DA, joined by smaller parties, formed a Government of National Unity, or GNU, a historic coalition that promised to reshape South African politics. Together, they controlled 85% of parliament, a formidable majority that held the potential to enact significant reforms. This created a powerful legislative bloc, capable of driving policy and shaping the future of South Africa. Some hailed this as pragmatic politics, a necessary step to ensure stability and progress in a complex and challenging environment. Others saw a fragile alliance, papering over deep divisions and destined to crumble under the weight of its own contradictions. The real test, the true measure of this unlikely partnership: could this uneasy partnership survive the daily pressures and clashing ambitions of governance? Or would it succumb to the inherent tensions that lay beneath the surface? Tensions surfaced quickly within the GNU, almost from the moment the coalition agreement was signed. The initial euphoria of national unity soon gave way to the realities of governing with vastly different ideologies and policy objectives. It became clear that navigating these differences would be a constant challenge. As the ANC's legislative agenda, shaped by decades of struggle and a commitment to social justice, clashed head-on with the DA's core principles, rooted in free market economics and individual liberties. This collision of ideologies played out in parliamentary debates and public discourse, creating a volatile political atmosphere. One of the earliest and most contentious points of disagreement was the Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill, a piece of legislation aimed at reforming the country's education system. The bill proposed giving the national government more control over schools, centralizing certain aspects of administration and curriculum development. The ANC argued that this was necessary to address inequalities and improve the quality of education across the board. However, this proposal was fiercely opposed by the DA, who saw it as a threat to school autonomy and language rights, particularly in historically African-speaking communities. They argued that centralized control would stifle innovation and undermine the unique character of individual schools. Healthcare reform was another major battleground, a sector rife with inequalities and in desperate need of systemic change. The ANC's push for national health insurance, NHI, a flagship policy aimed at providing universal healthcare access, met strong resistance from the DA. The NHI proposed a single-payer system, funded by taxes, to replace the current multi-tiered system. The DA, however, called it unaffordable, unsustainable, and a significant threat to private healthcare, arguing that it would lead to a decline in the quality of care and limit patient choice. They advocated for a more market-based approach to healthcare reform. But of all the policy disagreements, land reform proved to be the most divisive and emotionally charged issue. The legacy of apartheid land dispossession continues to haunt South Africa, and the need for equitable land redistribution is widely recognized. The flashpoint was the ANC's expropriation bill, a piece of legislation designed to accelerate the pace of land reform. The bill included provisions allowing land seizure without compensation in certain circumstances, particularly for underutilized or abandoned land. This provision was vehemently condemned by the DA as an attack on property rights, a violation of the Constitution, and a grave threat to economic stability, potentially deterring investment and undermining agricultural production. These deep-seated disputes forced the DA into a strange and uncomfortable dual role within the GNU. On one hand, they were a governing partner, represented in cabinet, and involved in the day-to-day decision-making processes of the government. On the other hand, they were a vocal critic in public, constantly challenging and opposing policies they disagreed with. The DA often found itself in the position of challenging government policies that it was technically part of formulating and implementing. This contradictory stance inevitably led to accusations of undermining the GNU from within, of acting in bad faith, and of prioritizing political point scoring over the stability of the coalition. The ANC, in turn, accused the DA of sabotaging collective responsibility, of grandstanding for their base, and of failing to fully commit to the spirit of national unity. As a result, policy battles became routine occurrences within the GNU, a constant source of friction and tension. These clashes served to expose the alliance's deep ideological rifts, highlighting the fundamental differences in worldview and policy priorities between the ANC and the DA. The GNU's unity was constantly tested at every turn, its stability threatened by these persistent disagreements. With each party fiercely fighting to protect its core values and advance its own agenda, the future of the coalition remained uncertain. Policy disagreements erupted into crisis during the annual budget process. The ANC-led Treasury proposed a VAT hike to stabilize finances and fund social programs. The DA fiercely opposed the increase, arguing it would hurt the poor and demanding spending cuts and anti-corruption measures instead. The standoff delayed the national budget twice, an unprecedented event. The DA threatened to vote against the budget, risking a constitutional crisis and possible government collapse. The ANC accused the DA of reckless brinkmanship. Ultimately, the ANC conceded, scrapping the VAT hike and seeking alternative funding. The DA claimed victory, proving it could block ANC policies from within. For the ANC, it was a sobering lesson in the limits of power sharing. The fragile peace shattered when President Ramaphosa fired DA Deputy Trade Minister Andrew Whitfield for an unsanctioned U.S. trip. The DA erupted, calling the move hypocritical compared to corruption allegations against ANC ministers. DA leader John Steenhuisen issued an ultimatum: fire 3 ANC ministers facing corruption claims or face consequences. Ramaphosa refused, insisting he wouldn't yield to threats or let the DA dictate his cabinet. In protest, the DA withdrew from the national dialogue, escalating tensions. The party stopped short of a no-confidence motion but vowed to oppose budgets for ministries led by accused officials. The standoff deepened, shifting from rhetoric to legislative obstruction. The GNU's internal conflict became increasingly public and personal. A new scandal erupted when explosive allegations surfaced against Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, accusing him of ties to criminal syndicates and interference in investigations. The DA demanded his dismissal, framing the scandal as proof of ANC rot. Ramaphosa cut short an international trip, placed Mchunu on leave, and launched a judicial inquiry. The DA dismissed this as a stalling tactic, doubting real accountability. The controversy further poisoned relations within the GNU. The DA claimed credit for forcing action, while also attacking the government over unrelated diplomatic issues. The Mchunu affair became another weapon in the ongoing power struggle. The GNU's credibility and cohesion took another hit. As internal strife raged, South Africa faced a diplomatic crisis. The U.S. announced a 30% tariff on South African goods, threatening massive job losses. The economy, already battered, faced further instability. The U.S. also boycotted the G20 summit in South Africa, signaling deepening diplomatic rifts. The GNU was under pressure to present a united front, but infighting weakened its hand. The crisis underscored how domestic instability made South Africa vulnerable on the world stage. The need for unity had never been more urgent. South Africa's political landscape is currently a complex web of alliances and tensions. The Democratic Alliance, or DA, finds itself in a unique position within the Government of National Unity. With constant conflict and differing ideologies at play, the question arises, why does the DA choose to stay in the GNU amidst all the turbulence? What are the driving forces behind their decision to remain engaged in this challenging political environment? For the DA, this is its first real taste of national power, a significant milestone after years of striving to influence policy at the highest level. This opportunity allows them to shape the direction of the country in ways they never could before. After decades in opposition where their influence was limited to critiquing and proposing alternative policies from the sidelines, now they have a seat at the table. Leaving would mean losing influence, a prospect that carries significant weight. It would mean relinquishing their ability to directly impact legislation and government decisions, and letting the ANC seek new, potentially more radical partners, a scenario that the DA views with considerable concern. The DA fears that without their moderating influence, the ANC might align with parties whose policies could be detrimental to the country's stability and progress. The DA fears a coalition with the EFF, whose policies they believe would be harmful to the economy, or MK Party, would represent a significant shift away from the DA's core values and principles, would be disastrous for the economy and democracy, potentially undermining investor confidence and eroding the foundations of South Africa's democratic institutions. Staying allows the DA to block harmful policies, acting as a crucial check and balance within the government. As seen with the VAT hike, where their opposition played a role in mitigating the impact on ordinary citizens, and act as an internal watchdog, ensuring transparency and accountability within the government's operations. The party balances governing with public criticism, maintaining its identity as a distinct voice while participating in the administration. Claiming credit for successes and distancing from failures, a delicate balancing act in the complex world of coalition politics. As leader John Steenhuisen put it, if the ANC want us out, they must kick us out. The DA endures the friction, the inevitable consequence of working with parties with different agendas, believing it's the lesser evil, a pragmatic decision driven by a sense of responsibility for both party and country, a commitment to stability and progress that transcends partisan interests. The ANC, too, has strong reasons to keep the GNU intact. The DA's presence reassures investors and the business community, stabilizing markets and boosting confidence. Ramaphosa knows that coalitions with the EFF or MK Party would be even more volatile and damaging. Sharing power with the DA gives the ANC political cover for tough decisions and spreads the blame for unpopular policies. The GNU lets the ANC present itself as pragmatic and centrist, while keeping radicals at bay. The arrangement forces compromise and discipline, a new experience for a party used to ruling alone. The cost is constant public squabbling and concessions, but the alternative, government collapse and chaos, is far worse. For the ANC, the GNU is the least bad option for stability and reform. Can this uneasy alliance last? For now, yes. Both parties see the risks of collapse as greater than the pain of partnership. The alternative, radical coalitions or chaos, is unthinkable in a fragile economy. The GNU will likely lurch from crisis to crisis, with tension a permanent feature. This reflects a global trend. Coalition governments are the new normal as old loyalties fade. South Africa's GNU is a case study in compromise as a survival strategy. The government will endure, but uneasily, as long as mutual interest in stability outweighs partisan temptations. For now, the ANC and DA remain locked in a political marriage of necessity, unhappy but determined to avoid a messy divorce.